Hey, I'm Dr. Robin Koslowitz, YouTube's post-traumatic parenting expert. Today I'm going to respond to another Reddit thread from our parenting. This is a Reddit thread that a post-traumatic parenting community member sent me asking how I would respond to it because something similar happened to her. And I think this is something that's really important for us to dive into. I feel like the worst mother ever. So I work at a well-known coffee chain as a manager, and that sometimes means I have to be at work by 3:30 a.m. The night before this awful situation, I didn't fall asleep until 12 a.m., even though I had to be up at 2:45 a.m. Although I got off at a decent time and could have asked my mom to watch my 6-month-old a little longer so I could take a nap, I just wanted to be with my little girl. So when she finally went down for a nap in her room, I decided I would lay on the couch, which is less than 3 feet from her room. Context: we also have a camera that connects to our phones in her room with very loud notifications. Well, I fell asleep. I have no idea when I fell asleep or literally what happened, but suddenly my husband was home and I realized I had been asleep for at least 2 hours. I checked my phone only to realize that I had been getting notifications from the camera for 45 minutes, meaning she had been awake for 45 minutes. Luckily, she hadn't been crying or hurt, just rolling around in her crib. But I still feel absolutely racked with guilt. I've never felt this awful in my entire life. My husband keeps trying to get me to relax and tells me this happens to parents all the time, and that it was safer that I set her down rather than fall asleep with her in my arms or in an unsafe environment. But I can't find it in me to validate it or feel okay. I feel like an awful mother. My baby is fine, by the way. She was happy and excited to see her daddy when he got home. No inclination that she had been up for nearly an hour crawling around her crib. Let's unpack this for post-traumatic parenting. So first of all, as post-traumatic parents, a lot of us feel a tremendous amount of guilt when it comes to our parenting and our parenting decisions. If you're a post-traumatic parent and you're feeling a lot of guilt and you're not sure what to do about that guilt, hi, welcome. That's some of the topics that we talk about here. Please click subscribe below so you never miss another episode. And let's really dive deeply into guilt and understanding guilt and how it works in parenting. The first thing we need to know about guilt is an emotion that tells us I did something wrong. I did something not consistent with my values. As opposed to shame, which means I did something wrong and other humans might judge me for it. Guilt sometimes is seen as, Brene Brown says, guilt is I did something bad. Shame is I am bad. But for the purposes of this, I'm going to look at guilt as an internalized emotion about something I did that me, myself, and I are judging me about, versus shame where I'm judging myself and other humans are judging me as well. That is the difference between guilt and shame. So guilt exists within us to tell us when we've done something wrong. And the function of guilt is mostly to get us to correct it. If I did something wrong, I need to fix that. I need to fix that wrong thing. So if I said something accidentally tactless to my friend, I need to go apologize. I need to take responsibility for what I said, say I'm sorry, and figure out some plan to make sure that that doesn't happen in the future. That is the entire goal and function of guilt within our psyche. But here's the thing with guilt. There's two kinds. There's justified guilt and there's unjustified guilt. So justified guilt is when I did something wrong and it was indeed wrong. It was the wrong thing to do. I let my temper get the better of me and I said those things I shouldn't have said. I spent more money than I should have and now there isn't money in the budget to, cover somebody else's wants or needs. I didn't behave as professionally as I believe in behaving. I got busy on my phone and I was kind of distracted and not paying so much attention to my kids and not being the kind of present parent I believe in being. That is justified guilt. And then the idea is, how do I make a plan to fix it? Unjustified guilt is when I feel guilt for something that I have no control over, that isn't actually something that I did wrong, or something that I feel is wrong, but it actually isn't a reflection of me or my choices. So unjustified guilt might be guilt that this mother felt for doing this horrendous thing called falling asleep while parenting, which sleep is a human natural need. Unjustified guilt might mean feeling guilty because, your kid really wants to take ballet lessons, but that's just not in the budget. Your kid is well taken care of, fed, adequately supervised, dressed properly, like they have all their needs met, they even have some of their wants, but your budget this year is just not going to extend to ballet lessons, and you feel a sense of guilt, like I'm not giving my kid all the opportunities they would like to have. That's unjustified guilt. Unjustified guilt means I am feeling guilty, but actually didn't do anything wrong. And yeah, for parents, guilt is one of those prevalent emotions. We feel guilty frequently as parents. We feel guilty for all sorts of things. And sometimes that's a useful signal in our psyche. Yeah, I shouldn't have done that. One day I remember I was busy on my phone. I was parenting my kids, and I am a child psychologist, expert on post-traumatic parenting, expert on all the things we're talking about. And I was really busy on my phone, and we were outside in our backyard, and my kids were playing on their play structure. And one of my kids wanted to tell me this very long-winded story about something that had happened at preschool. And I was very busy on my phone, so I kind of distractedly was doing the, thing where the kid's talking. It's called fubbing, right? And you're like, yeah, But really, my entire brain was on what was going on my phone. And my kid said to me, "Mommy, you're not paying attention to me. Look at me. Think of me. Do not think about your phone." And it was like, whoa, okay. That was guilt, and that was justified guilt. And what I said was, you are 100% right. I am going to finish sending this text because it was about something important, and then I am shutting off my phone because I want to hear every single detail of the story that you are in the middle of telling me. And I made sure to shut off my phone, and then, still feeling the sense of guilt, I thought to myself, I need to troubleshoot this. How did it happen that I was so busy on my phone that my kid felt so unvalued and had to kind of like really say straight out, "You're not paying attention to me"? And I realized that I was letting a situation from work like sort of bleed into the end of my day, even though I was not at work anymore. And I shouldn't be letting this situation bleed in because I'm a human and I'm allowed to clock out and not be at work anymore. So I set certain systems in place, and I let like some of my colleagues know, like, I am not going to be available. If you text me, after 4 p.m., my phone is going to be off. I may not see your text until the following day. And for a while, I set my phone with one of those apps that like just shut my phone off for anything but phone calls between the hours of 4 and 7:30 p.m. And that was that. And you know what? Like, nobody died, and the world went on, and Instagram continued to exist, and my office continued to exist, even though for 3.5 hours, nobody was able to reach me, because I felt like I needed to set some measures in place to make sure that never happened again. In this situation, I think this mom's brain is telling her that maybe something dangerous could have happened. So the brain is trying to kind of warn her, like, oh no, this could have been bad. The baby could have been crying. I have a feeling, though, that had the baby been crying, she would have heard it. A chirp or a ding or an alert from a phone is very different than the sound of a baby in distress. If the sound of her baby crying wouldn't have woken her up, that is a signal that she is so exhausted that she needs sleep. Let's remember that sleep is a mood stabilizer, and let's remember that we need sleep. And let's remember that 6 months after childbirth, your body has not yet gone back to normal. And if you're already back at work at a coffee shop where you have to be up at 2:45 in the morning in order to do your shift, which sounds like you have a split shift, and sometimes you have to be up that early and sometimes you don't, which is actually the worst kind of schedule. Shifts that shift, right? Shift work, where sometimes you have the really early shift, sometimes you have the late shift, is the worst kind of schedule for sleep hygiene. So if you have that kind of schedule, which is really, really, really bad for your psyche and bad for your sleep hygiene, and now you're exhausted because you just birthed a 6-month-old and your body and brain are not back to normal. It will take 2 years for your hormones and your body to get back to normal. If you're that exhausted, your body probably needed the sleep. You didn't sleep because like, oh yeah, sleep is so fun, right? It's not like you like left her crying in her crib while you went out shopping and, and for a night out on the town, leaving her unattended alone in your apartment. You fell asleep because you're human. Humans need sleep because sleep is an essential human need. So do not beat yourself up for being a human. Your daughter is lucky enough to be being raised by a perfectly imperfect human who loves her and wants to be close to her, even as she's exhausted after a really long shift at a coffee shop. The fact that that you want to be close to your daughter and that you couldn't bear to drop your daughter off at your mom's house because you just wanted more time with your precious little daughter tells me that you are a wonderful mother and you are doing really, really, really well. I do wonder though, perhaps this is something you might want to bring up with your provider, with your husband, with your own mom. I'm wondering if you have perhaps some postpartum, perhaps anxiety still lingering after the birth of your baby. And sometimes postpartum mood disorders can start at about the 6-month mark. So I'm wondering if you are experiencing a lot of insomnia, or if when you're sleeping, because like you're listening with half an ear for your daughter, you're not sleeping all that deeply. If you sleep with like a Fitbit or any other sleep tracking app, if you notice you're getting a lot of light sleep, but not a lot of deep and REM, rapid eye movement sleep, because like your brain is so hypervigilant, it won't let you actually relax into deep sleep, because what if the baby wakes up and I won't hear her, especially after this story, then you might want to talk to your healthcare provider about some solutions for getting better sleep and for dealing with your anxiety in general. Because the fact is, even if your baby had been crying for some of that time, nothing so terrible would have happened. She would have cried. She would have been sad. It wouldn't have been perfect, but it wouldn't have irreparably harmed her attachment. Our attachment system with our babies is not so fragile that one time that mom falls asleep deeply because she really needs the sleep, that's it, the attachment system is harmed forever. Actually, what happened was for 45 minutes, she got to like experience the world and look at shapes near her and far away from her and smell the familiar smell of her crib and smell the familiar smell of her mom really close by and, stare at her own toes. And yes, a baby can be fascinated by staring at their own toes for 45 minutes. She does not need to be stimulated. Her brain can find so many things to amuse it simply by looking at her very own pinky or her very own toe. And by patting her, when one hand accidentally finds the other hand and she's touching her hands, I'm like, whoa, that feels funny. What's that sensation? And she was playing for 45 minutes. That's what babies do. They roll around in their crib and play and figure things out, because that gives them time to explore the world and take in all the sights and sounds and everything around them that's new and exciting, because even in her familiar crib is a lot of sights and sounds that are new and exciting. Her hand accidentally touches her nose and she thinks, whoa, that's a cool feeling. What was that about? And she tries it again. And that's the beginning of purposeful action. So you did nothing wrong. It's totally fine. As a mother, I've left my babies to lay on like a playmat or lay in their crib and bustled around until they started crying. And I, got stuff done, used the bathroom, brushed my teeth, did a whole bunch of things until the baby started to cry, and then I would go pick them up. That's normal. You're allowed to do that as a parent. The attachment system was not designed to be so fragile that one time of 45 minutes where the baby doesn't even realize that mom wasn't fully attending to her means that's it, attachment's over. If that was the case, the attachment system wouldn't exist, because there is nothing that fragile that exists in nature. So do not worry that you somehow irreparably harmed your baby. But if you're not sleeping, please get some help. Because it would be really bad and sad and tragic if your irresistible need for sleep suddenly overtook you while you were driving to that coffee shop that you manage. That would be pretty terrible. So if you're not getting deep sleep, there are lots of sleep hygiene things you can do. You can sleep with a noise machine. You can, which you'll, if you really need to, you'll still hear your baby, or you and your husband could have parent on duty nights where, let's say, one night you're on duty to listen out for the baby, the other night he's on duty to listen out to the baby. That way one of you gets deep sleep. You can buy, there's aromatherapy that can help with sleep. There are bath soaks that can help with sleep. Magnesium can help with sleep. There are a lot of options, and there are also more serious options like biochemical reactions, like going to a psychiatrist and perhaps getting some of that, perhaps getting some help with some postpartum anxiety. I'm not diagnosing you. I don't know you, but it's worthwhile talking to your healthcare provider just to find out if everything's normal and if there's something that can help and make this system, because it sounds like you're taking a lot of pressure on yourself and you're making this harder perhaps than it needs to be. And your very own doctor who knows you, who's licensed in your own jurisdiction, would be the perfect person to tell you if there are some fairly easy fixes that can be done. And if not, getting more support. Maybe one night mom comes and sleeps over and keeps an ear out for the baby, so both you and your husband can get a really deep, heavy night of sleep, or you and your husband take turns. However it's done, the idea being that you need some deep sleep to recover from childbirth. You're already back at work. You're already back at work. That's hard. So we're going to try to make it as easy as possible, getting as much help and support as possible. But in terms of the fact that you dozed off, all that says about you as a mother is that you are a mother. Newsflash, being a mother is really, really tiring. Labor doesn't stop when you push the baby out into the world. That's when labor starts. It is hard work being a mother. It is hard work having the thoughts that we have about how to keep this tiny little human alive going through our heads, and all the decisions we need to make, especially when we're balancing that with a marriage and a job and maybe having any form of a life or an extended family. It's really, really difficult. So I want you to extend yourself some slack. And please, please, please figure out what you can do to get a little bit more sleep and a little bit more support. If you're a post-traumatic parent and you've been wondering about guilt and you've been wondering about self-care, hi, welcome. We get it. We've been there. We're post-traumatic parents too. Believe me when I say that self-care is childcare. When you are getting a deep night's sleep because your baby is being watched by your mom, you are taking care of your baby, because taking care of you is taking care of your baby. Self-care is childcare. Don't forget that. If you like this video, if this is information that you needed, if you have a friend that needs it, please make sure to send this video to your friend. Please, if you want to support the Post-Traumatic Parenting Project, because these videos are helpful to you, you can like, save, share, subscribe, tell a friend about us. If you want to hang out where the post-traumatic parenting community hangs out, check out at Dr. Kozlowitz Psychology on Instagram. I do respond to my DMs. I do respond to the comments in these YouTube videos. If you want to hear long-form interviews with post-traumatic parenting experts, check out the Post-Traumatic Parenting Podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, keep your eyes peeled for the Post-Traumatic Parenting book, which is coming out in 2025. Till next time.